Hey guys, today I'm going to show you how to change the old dated leather on your NSX door panels to something like Alcantara. So here are the tools and the products that you're going to need. First and foremost, the most important is the 3M High Strength 90 contact adhesive. You can get this online or at any home improvement store. It's about $17 at Home Depot. Next, of course, most important is the material that you're going to need. This is a piece of Alcantara, and you generally want genuine, made in Italy Alcantara, made to withstand, UV rays in a vehicle. And this is just a scrap, but I got mine for about 24 inches by 56 for $117. It's not exactly super cheap, but it's a lot cheaper than overall having someone else do this for you. So again, that's $117 for a 24 inch by 56 inch roll. And this is Scrim. This is basically padding. I got this is quarter inch. This is pretty cheap, $20 for a roll. I think I got a yard or 2 yards. And I should mention, if you search Alcantara, there's 2 different kinds of Alcantara. There's backed or non-backed. So this is non-backed, which in general is what people use for door panels. Backed means, does not mean there's scrim on it, but backed means that there's thicker material on the back meant for a more durable surface, like a seat or something like that. So this is what we're using today, non-backed, and the color of this is deep black. You're also going to need some masking tape. These trim tools, which you can get at pretty cheap at Harbor Freight or anywhere. These are for removing the interior panels, getting access to take off the door cards. Screwdriver, Phillips. You probably need like a Sharpie or something to draw on the material so you can cut it out. And I personally found this kind of pliers useful. It's a I don't know what this is called, but it's very flat. The tip of it is very wide and flat, so I ended up using this to pull the leather off of the base metal pieces, and as opposed to using your fingernails, it ends up working out pretty nicely. And just a blade and some scissors. Obviously you'll need the scissors to cut this, and sometimes I use the razor blade also. Other than that, you're gonna need a couple of, I ended up cutting up some cardboard so I have some clean surfaces, because when you spray, it does get pretty messy and it gets everywhere. So I'll get into that later when we start doing it, showing you guys the best processes. But as far as best practices, these that I happen to have, these little triangles are meant to hold up pieces, so like you can paint them, hold them off, off the ground or off the workbench or something. I got these, I think, at Home Depot. I will link them in the description below. But these are what's going to, you don't necessarily need this, but this is what saved me from going through like dozens of pieces of cardboard, because I was able to put my material on these, just set them up, and you'll see me do it later, but set them up and have the material lifted off the ground, off the surface, and so I can spray the adhesive on there and not have to use one separate clean piece of cardboard per spray. So I think that about does it. In this tutorial, I'm going to quickly show you how to take off your door panels, but not a step-by-step process for the door panels, more of a step-by-step process for the reupholstery itself. So let's get into it. And really quick, I just want to show you guys how much material I have left over. This piece is the Scrim, and I should have measured exactly how much I got. I think I got like 2 square yards or something. But tons left over. Not so much of the Alcantara. Again, this is authentic Alcantara. But I mean, plenty to do what you need to do for 2 door panels. Just not that much, a whole lot left over. Can't do 2 sets of door panels. Just one pair of door panels. And this is without very much waste either. I didn't have to, this is probably the only thing that I had to, the only piece that I had left over that I forgot to use. Other than that, everything else is just tiny bits and scraps. So I pretty much didn't throw much else away. So if you, again, I'll link everything that I purchased in the description and the amounts of material. But what I purchased ended up working out just fine. And all in all, materials, these two pieces and the glue is pretty much all the materials I needed to buy. It's about $150, so not too bad at all. All right, so like I said, I'm not going to show you step by step of how to take out the door panels, but I'll go through the main points. Essentially, you're going to need these tools first to take this panel piece off, and then access all the screws to remove the door handle. And then you're going to remove the Phillips around the perimeter of the door panel that are hidden under the rubber. And you're also going to need to pop open these pieces and the front and rear of the door panel in order to lift it up. Okay, so mine's broken, but the hardest part about taking this piece off is that this part right here is what keeps it from moving backwards, and you have to simultaneously pry this part away from the door panel to clear this and push it backwards. So that action of pulling outwards and pushing back is probably why this is broken, and it's also why these points always get scuffed up, because they fit in between the door handles, and you just have to constantly sliding in and out, and it's just going to scratch it up. So I did find that once I put the Alcantara on, this piece went in a lot easier because it's a lot thinner material. So not only is this side thinner, but this side's thinner also. So it slid in really nicely on the side that I already did. So once you get the door handle off, you're going to see all these screws. Again, I'm not going to show you everything because a lot of my car has been taken apart, and the screws and bolts are not original. So I'm going to take these all off and release the cable for the lever, and then I'll catch up with you guys in a bit. So if you already know how to take off your door panels, I will show you a step-by-step how to remove these, how to access these pieces once you have your door panel off. So you can go ahead and skip ahead right now. So these front and rear pieces are just held on by these clips, which often break. So you're going to want to get these tool in here and pry it off, but again, they always break, so be aware of that. Okay, and then for the rest of the door panel, you're just going to pull the rubber back, and you'll see these tabs sticking out with these Phillips screws. So these tabs often break as well. These replacement pieces are a common maintenance item that people end up having to replace over the years. So you're going to want to go around the entire door panel and find the screws that you're going to want to remove. So after you take out all the screws, you want to pry out the panel without snapping these, getting it in front of the rubber, and you just want to pull upwards. So the way this door panel attaches, this piece curves into underneath this chrome. So you just want to grab it like so and pull up like that. All right, so to release the door panels, the door trim pieces are held in just by these tabs. And so there's 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then the armrest elbow pad piece is held in by these 3 Phillips right here, and a little bit of tape. And you're gonna have to release this side trim piece with these 3 or 4-ish Phillips screws. Remove that side in order to get this last piece off. All right, once you get all the screws out, there's a tab. For this last piece, there's 2 tabs that go into the side of this plastic. One right here. And should be one right here, but that's bent out of the way. All right, so there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 screws holding it in to the centerpiece. Here's that last tab that was already bent out of the way. So now you just gotta unbend all these things. After you get these all bent up and out of the way like this, and be careful because they'll be able to fall out. Your armrest will just fall out like this. Typically tape holds it in place with these pieces, but looks like mine's been taken apart. So flip it over and you should be able to just start removing them. Like that. Okay, so we have all the door panels here. I'm not going to show you how to do all of these, obviously. I'm going to just show you the odd shaped ones like this one, this piece, and one of these. But to note first, this is plastic. Obviously, since mine's broken, you be aware that it can break. But these are thin steel, I guess, so, and they're curved. So you want to be careful handling these and removing the leather. You don't want to bend these out of shape because you want to make sure that it has the right curvature to get the right amount of material, Alcantara, on there. So I noticed that some of mine ended up getting bent out of shape and I had to bend it to the correct curvature. So let's get into removing the leather. So depending on how new or old your car is, how much heat it's seen, these pieces can be easy-ish to pull off or not. Some pieces are easier than others that I experienced. So you're gonna wanna kind of remove this leather nicely. You don't wanna just chop it up and cut it all off because you're gonna wanna trace the size of it onto your material and also understand how the corners are cut in order to get the material wrapped around it. So you're just gonna do this around the whole thing. It does have factory foam or scrim underneath it, so it's not glued everywhere. I think it's glued in like a few different spots, so it should be relatively easy to come off. So as you can see, it should come off like that. So just keep going around. All right, so I'm just about ready to take this whole thing off. Just a few spots where these OEM scrim is still attached. So it looks like it's kind of glued around the perimeter. I wouldn't worry too much about getting this completely clean. Reason being is because we are using replacement scrim, and so it won't show through. If you were just putting the Alcantara directly on this, which I do not recommend, because obviously there's these holes, there's these divots that are going to show through, and obviously these patches of scrim are going to show through. But with the new scrim going on top of this, it's not gonna increase the thickness very noticeably. As you can see, it comes off decently easy. But I wouldn't even worry about getting this super clean for the adhesive, because the adhesive is really, really strong. The moment it's tacky after about minute and a half, and you basically have one shot to get it on. So now that we have this piece, you can see that we're going to trace, we don't need to trace it exactly. I'll show you my process. You can trace it exactly, but that's a lot of work. But we're going to trace this piece like so for the scrim, and then we'll kind of flare this out onto the Alcantara and kind of trace a larger piece and cut that out, and then we're going to make these relief cuts after the piece is glued on to the backing. That's the way I'm doing it, just because it's a little bit easier. You could go all out and make like a template and everything like that if you wanted to do this over and over. But me, I'm just doing it one by one. And one of the things you have to understand is take a look at the leather and how the OEM cut it. Basically, on any corner, in any given 90-degree corner, they're doing something like, if this is the backing and this is the leather, they're cutting it at this angle and leaving a strip like this. This is the leather. This is the backing. That way when this folds over, when this piece folds over like that, this piece folds over like that, they don't get in the way of this middle piece folding over as well. Any piece is gonna come backwards like this. That's what you're seeing here. All right, my workflow is anytime I have my Scrim or Alcantara out and I'm ready to trace it, I lay out some clean cardboard. I save these and keep them clean for this purpose. So you're gonna grab your piece right here. And essentially I just trace this piece like this. I should mention when it comes to the Scrim, it is better to have it too big than too small. And I'll show you the reason why in a second. So when you apply this to the metal backing, if it's too small, for example, let's say there's this metal lip sticking out here because you made it too small, when you glue on the Alcantara, it's gonna show a ledge here. Basically, like from this angle, like this is exaggerated, but the Alcantara is gonna go over, it's gonna hang over this Scrim ledge, and it's gonna hang over this piece. So you want it exact or a little bit too big in order for there to be no funny shapes once you lay down the Alcantara. So if you trace the leather piece for the Scrim like that, it's gonna be a little bit too big and you're just gonna go ahead and trim. What I do is end up just trimming this excess off. So what you can do is trace it again. And just try to get it more exact. Again, watching for the edges, make sure that, so these look good. Okay, and next, when you grab your Alcantara, I don't know if Alcantara is supposed to have only one side, but to me, it does look like one side is probably hard to see on camera, but one side's a little bit lighter and kind of like a little bit more matte down. So for me, the top side, the good side, is the piece that's rolled into itself. So that's probably on purpose, I would imagine, if there is a back side. So to me, this is the back side. So what I'm gonna do is give myself extra space. I just kind of trace it with a little bit extra space on it. I'd rather have too much than too little, especially this, me being amateur at this. When you get better at this, you can learn how to save more material, but I'm not at that point yet. So we're gonna go ahead and put these clean ones away. Pull these ones out. And this is where the way this works is you wanna shake it well and you need to spray both surfaces that you wanna bond. So these pieces always, I don't need anything underneath it because they got these pegs sticking out. But this piece, you can see why I use these now, is because without these, I'd have to use, I want to lay these down, but this is still even sticky a day later. A little bit sticky, but it's not going to damage anything right now. I could put this on here, but when I spray, it's going to get everywhere, and I don't want any of the good side, especially the Alcantara, to get any of the glue on there. So I have this to hold it off of the surface, and I can reuse this cardboard every time because I'm using these stands. So we're gonna shake it up good and spray this. This is described as silly string, the consistency of this spray. Silly string, but it sprays out in a pretty thick, probably 1.5 to 2 inch pattern. And so it doesn't tell you how many sprays, but I generally do maybe 1.5 to 2 layers each. It takes a minute or so to get tacky. The way they tell you it's ready to bond is when you touch it with your skin, if there's no transfer to your skin, and it's ready to bond. So that happens generally in about a minute. You gotta be really careful when it's time to bond that this lays on as straight as possible, because especially if you cut it exactly like I did, you might want to just make it bigger and then trim it afterwards, but it's kind of hard to trim, especially with there's a lot of glue on it. So you only get about one shot. You can kind of stretch it and move it a little bit. You'll see maybe if I get to that point. And use this in a well-ventilated area. So 1 minute from now. Okay, it's been about a minute. At this point, I basically put these on the ground and I move these up to the clean surface. And you'll notice that some spray gets on this surface. This is good to note this because it can happen with the Alcantara. So it's sticky, but it doesn't transfer. So I like to put one corner down first, kind of align the edge. Okay, give this another try. Okay, you can see that it's on there now. It's really on there. This stuff sticks really well, and there's a little bit of extra material in here, so I'm going to try to trim that down as best I can. It's better if you end up getting it on the dot more rather than having to trim it after. This is sticking out a little bit, but I'm not going to worry about that. It'll fold over nicely. So pretty much this is what you have, and then now you are going to do the same process but with the Alcantara. So when it comes time to do the Alcantara, I like to lay a towel down in a kind of half circle shape, and make sure you have the right side that you want to glue on. I lay that down, and my process for this is I'm going to mask this off. So I'm going to try to center it, and the reason I'm doing this is because I only want to spray glue on the center. I'm going to do the glue on the sides on a second step. So I'm going to mask off the outside line. So these pieces actually, lately the glue has been kind of flicking itself onto the side that I don't want it to be on. So you may want to just grab a clean piece of cardboard and spray it like this, just so you can be safer than sorry. You definitely don't want get glue on the good side. So same process, shake it well, spray both sides. After about 1 minute, when it gets tacky, attach them. I also like to clean off my nozzle after every spray. So here we go. And I'm gonna peel off the tape right now while it's still wet. Be careful not to drag the Alcantara over the excess spray. That's why I had to lift it off quickly. I almost did that. So we're good on this side. So take this off. Need some clean cardboard down. It's hard to make sure the angle is correct. like it's slightly off. Oh, it's going on only one way. So I'm slightly off, but it should be enough material to fold over. So I got lucky with that one. Now again, here's the fun cutting part. You're gonna wanna cut like in these shapes that I told you about earlier. Cut at these kind of angles. And I'm gonna cut off some excess too, because I don't want this whole thing folding over. So I'm gonna just eyeball it. Generally, I'm cutting it this width, the amount of width of this, because I want to fold over like that. And so right here, you're gonna angle this. This is gonna be angled, and you're not gonna cut all the way over. You're gonna leave a little bit of space. So generally like that, and like that. And then have, so I've been eyeballing it. You can measure if you want, make it even. So something like that. That way you can fold over, and fold over like that. And you'll be good. And then you can, so this is nice. Since there's no glue on here, you can go ahead and test these all, fold it over, make sure there's, so I cut these a little close. So I'm gonna have to stretch it. Make sure none of these pointy areas show up on the outside. So I'll stretch this. Luckily this glue is really good and sticky. Take away the clean cardboard. Bring out the dirty one again. And this is where you'll want to have these stands again. And then how I do it, you can, if you want, if you don't have confidence in your aiming abilities, you can mask out the center, but it's pretty easy to just aim on the sides and only get these portions right here. And again, I don't feel any need to clean this off. The glue sticks really well. You won't need to do it. All right, here we go. All right, after about a minute, you should be able to handle this. Luckily, little strings like this, not terrible. They can usually be knocked off, but this is on the sides, so you won't be able to see it. Just make sure nothing on the surface that is going to be seen. There's no glue on the surface. And then you can start. Whether you put these small ones down first or not, I haven't really seen a difference. I just kind of go around and I kind of pull on it. As you can see, it sticks really well. Pull on it taut. Sometimes you want to pull on it, the whole thing at once to make sure there's no creases. And there we go, look at that. Holding no problem. That's why I say you don't need to clean the surface off. This glue holds extremely well. And you just rinse and repeat for every single panel. So again, I'll show you some of the other, I won't show you the full things as some of these other ones, but it gets a little tricky, especially this piece in this corner right here. These very tight corners, especially. So you're gonna have to play it by ear and cut off material as needed. And then this one right here, once you tear off this felt on here, you'll see in the leather that there's a relief cut right here. This corner right here is a little tight also. But all in all, it's decently easy. It's all pretty much done the exact same way. All right, guys, we're back with the odd shape one, and you'll notice that it has some paper backing on one side. I'm not sure what it is, but the Alcantara attaches perfectly fine without cardboard or paper. So I'm just gonna go ahead and trace this, lay it flat out, trace for the scrim. So this one's tricky just because of this 90-degree angle on here. So you just wanna, for me, I'm just gonna line up one edge, kind of hold it there. So this one is going to be the hardest to mate up just because obviously there's this 90-degree angle. So it's important to note that this face right here is the side that you're going to see on the inside of the car. This side right here sits in the door jamb. So I prefer to prioritize lining up this side over this side. If this side is not perfect, it's just going to be in the door jamb. Not a big deal, in my opinion. All right, after these are sticky but doesn't transfer, again, I'm going to prioritize these two angles right here. Okay, so I got these two down. Now I'm going to make sure this corner is covered. Just like so. Lightly pat it down and then fold this side over. And see, it looks like it's going to come up a little bit short, so I'm going to stretch it a little bit. And we're looking good. This got a little close right here, but we're good there. And there's a little bit extra here. I could just trim that off as best you can. Okay, ready for Alcantara. Again, we're going to mask this off. Make sure you have the back side of your Alcantara. And make sure that there's enough. See, this is not enough Alcantara on this side, so I move it over, lay it down, make sure it's good, and then start masking off. Again, I'm going to prioritize this triangular area, lightly pressing this corner on. I'm going to lightly press this side on. All right. There's a wrinkle in here, so I'm going to pull it back a little bit. I'm going to make sure this corner, there's no air that gets caught in there. So I'm going to do like this, slowly massage it in. Now we just need to cut the reliefs. So this part's the hardest part. It's hard to tell what they did exactly from factory. So I kind of just play it by ear. I end up cutting some reliefs that, like I always showed you guys how to do with these special angles. And then around this area, I end up just leaving a little bit extra material. That way, it's always better to have too much than too little. And then I start folding it in, and then I just cut off the excess, whatever I don't need. And then as far as trimming it down, I'm starting to trim the edges down. You gotta watch out for this peg right here. So you're gonna have to cut a relief cut about, you know, this distance away from the edge. So maybe about right there. That way you can go around it like this. So again, this corner I'm leaving pretty fat in here. I'm not gonna cut anything in yet. I might just, you know, once you start folding it in and folding this in, it has a lot of coverage. Maybe what I'm gonna do is spray half this time. The first time I sprayed the whole thing a little bit too much. This thing is pretty big, so ends up, after you finish one side, the other side's kind of not tacky anymore. So I'll spray one side first and then work on that and then spray the other side. All right, since I'm only spraying one side, I'm gonna hold it by hand. All right, it's been about a minute, so all right, now I'm gonna spray this side. Fat. Off. And there we have it. There's a little bit of pointy parts right here. I could have done that a little bit better. A little bit better. Sometimes you can pull them up and reattach it, or you respray it if you need to. All right, the last piece, the plastic interior door pull area. This is the hardest to get off, just because it's plastic and you don't want to break it. And it's got this felt lining the whole thing. So as I mentioned earlier, there's a relief cut right here. So you're gonna wanna pull up the felt in order to see what the OEM did. That way you can try to mimic that, because the felt's covering everything. So you can see what they did and what kind of cuts they made. I forgot to mention, so on this piece, actually, it looks like it's happening too. On the first time, the scrim, the factory scrim, stays on this piece, whereas on these, it was stuck to the leather. On this one, I was able to reuse the factory scrim. The reason I wanted to purposefully reuse instead of scraping it off is because, as I mentioned earlier, like these get scraped off because it's so thick and it's hard to fit into the door panel. So I didn't want to add an even thicker scrim. This looks like it's a lot thinner than the one I'm using. Maybe even half thickness. So I decided to use the factory scrim, put Alcantara over that, and it looks and fits even, it looks fine and fits even better than factory. So as you can see, I'm pulling this off and the factory foam is staying on there. This is, all right, since there's scrim on there already, I'm just gonna do a quick visual. All right, so repeat the usual process. And then actually for this one, I'm also gonna mask the center because these pegs and everything are so close to the edge. I'm gonna mask it off so that inside part stays clean. All right, time to spray. All right, I got it all cut up. I messed up a little bit on this part. I didn't cut it at the right angle. So as you can see, I folded over. It's not really covering this corner that well. So I'm gonna make sure I get some glue in there so I can push this over. Okay, here we go. I'm gonna do this corner first. This is the one I messed up on. All right, cut this piece a little close right here, but all in all, not too bad. This corner looks a little bad, but I can live with it. Learn from my mistakes and don't cut too much off at once. Got a little impatient. This is my last piece. I'm fully done with my interior, but when you do yours, be a little bit more patient. Be more conservative with your cuts. So here we go, guys. Have all of our pieces. Now we're just ready to install. All right, so as far as installation goes, you're just gonna want to install in reverse order. So I would like to put these three in first. And then you're gonna want to bend the tabs down. These ones, bend them up. These ones, bend them down. Now, just need to put this last piece in. And then install your last trim piece. And don't forget to bend down these last two tabs right here. last but not least is the armrest. This just goes straight in. There you are. Now ready to install. All right, so just reverse the order of operation for removal to install. Clip, hook it in underneath the chrome piece, and then pull out the rubber and put the tabs behind the rubber, put the screws in, and then do the door handles. I'll get back at you guys when it's all put together. All right, here's the final product. Sorry for the poor lighting, guys. I think you get the idea. A lot cleaner look.